The much-traveled Jon Hodkin is with us right now, somewhere in the Midwest of the USA. We're going to find out more details. Jon Hodkin, InnerTuba, how are you?
I'm extremely well, thank you, Gary. So nice to see you again.
And you again as well. So for those of you who don't know, my wife and I had the opportunity to head over to the Quad Cities, the Illinois-Iowa border last week, and met up with Jon to see what he was up to on his long tour. And let's go ahead and, Jon, let's tell the folks again, for those who don't know, what is this tour, what's it about, and what have you been up to here these last 3 or 4 months?
Okay, you'll see, possibly unusually for the Laid Back Bike Report, that the backdrop that we've chosen for today is a couple of tubas. And the reason for that is because not only am I a recumbent tricyclist, but I'm also a tuba player. And at the moment, I'm riding the entire length of the Mississippi River on the biggest tour in InnerTuba's history. And right now, we're in a chap called Lee Stouffer's workshop. Those are 2 of his tubas behind me. And as I look in front of me, off camera, I can see my tuba being beautifully and lovingly repaired and restored by Lee and polished up and made to work optimally. So that's why we're here, and that's why we've got tubas as a backdrop.
And generally speaking, Jon, where are you? You don't have to give me the address, but where are you?
Yeah, I'm in a place very near to Lowmore, which is near Clinton, which is 30 miles north of the Quad Cities on the Iowa side in the United States of America.
We're going to focus on the recent visit you had in the Quad Cities, Jon, but if we can just take a few minutes and kind of summarize your experience. You started out in Louisiana in March and have been traveling on that trike and trailer up the Mississippi. And so give me a general idea. How has your experience been so far with the folks that you've met, and maybe a couple of highlights?
When we set out with this idea of riding the entire length of the Mississippi River, I knew that it would be the biggest cycling and musical challenge of my entire life, and I'm not wrong with that. But having said that, I've experienced a huge amount of luck, really. I've not had any musculoskeletal problems or aches and pains or anything of that kind. I've not had anything stolen from me. I've not been in any major issues with traffic. And, you know, generally speaking, the whole thing, with a few exceptions, has run reasonably smoothly. And importantly, it's run to time and run to the itinerary, so that I've been able to fulfill all the engagements that I'd had before setting off. I mean, as regards highlights, there's so many that I just want to choose 2. And one of them was a school in a place called Jackson, Louisiana, not Jackson, Mississippi, Jackson, Louisiana, which is a small town. And I was invited by the head teacher of the elementary school to come and do a show for their pupils. And it turns out that she was a unicyclist. And I think it's the first time ever that InnerTuba has been chased around a huge, great elementary school gymnasium with the rate seating up the side of it, absolutely full of the 400 pupils, being chased by the head teacher of the school. The pupils absolutely loved it. You couldn't make it up, and it was wonderful. That was number 1. And number 2 that I've chosen is that I'm retracing some of my steps from a journey that you covered, Gary, back in 2019. And it was the moment that I came back onto familiar territory and started retracing my steps in a town that I'm extremely fond of in southeast Iowa called Keokuk. And that was another highlight, to be able to retrace my steps and know what was around the corner and meet up with old friends, which I've been doing since then.
Now, I'm guessing a third highlight, when all is said and done, of course, is going to be your visit, extended visit to the Quad Cities, where I joined you and participated in some of the events that you were involved with. So let's talk about the events, but maybe just before then, tell us about where you stayed. Did you pitch a tent right there on the Mississippi? What happened?
No. Thank you so much for joining us in the Quad Cities. And we were all lucky. You know, you and Marilyn turned up, and you were avidly and ferociously filming and recording and so on. And we all stayed at these lovely people's house, Phyllis and Jerry Miller, over in Malene, and they just were open house to everybody the whole time, and they were so generous. And we said goodbye to them today for the last time, So we were looked after like royalty.
Even I was looked after like royalty, which I'm not. So Phyllis and Jerry, thanks. Yeah. If Phyllis and Jerry are watching, and I know they never miss a show, we sure thank them as well for what they've done for you and for us and the rest of the house guests that were there. So, all right, Jon, let's get back to what happened there in the Quad Cities. You had a number of events, and what I'd like to do, if we can, is go through them one by one, and talk about your experience. So the first thing when I arrived there that we were involved with was this crazy tuba duet on the Mississippi River with a good friend of yours. So tell us about that.
Nick Propes, he's the tuba player, musical director of the Big River Brass Band, terrific videographer, has got lots of recording equipment. And you and he recorded he and me playing a lovely duet arrangement for two tubas by a chap called Alan Swain, who has also been on this on Laid Back Bite Report, of that lovely piece, Old Man River. And we did it on the banks of the Mississippi River with the backdrop of the new super duper bridge that spans between Illinois and Iowa. And in port, luckily that day, in port was the American Queen, which is one of these river-going cruise ships. And it's huge, and it was wonderful. And you'll remember doing the drone footage of that, so we can encourage everybody to look at that. It was wonderful. It was a great experience. The only downside to it was that the wind was ferociously strong that day, and in order to try and get anything like anything that resembled a studio recording, it was just more or less impossible. But we're quite pleased with the results that we got, given that it was like sitting in a wind tunnel rather than a recording studio.
It was fantastic, Jon. And yeah, it was all I could do to keep the drone from, flying into you and giving you another haircut impromptu. Right, yeah. So, but it was a fun, beautiful day, and the music was fantastic. Okay, yeah. So the next event that you had attended was a practice with the Bettendorf Park Band, and you were able to do a presentation. So tell us about that.
Yeah, that was kind of last minute and impromptu, and I was just invited to a rehearsal, at the end of which I just did 5 minutes representation of what I'd done with the summary, and I used the equipment that I used in the house concerts, which is pre-recorded piano accompaniments and a video screen and so on, and just gave them 10 minutes and thanked them for what they do for the musical community and made new friends. That's another absolutely big part of this journey. I've got a trail of friends that I've made from both the cycling and the musical communities that I've been through.
Absolutely. All right. Well, besides the Laid Back Bike Report, I think maybe a bit more important for you is to really get your story out there with the local media when you are in town. Mm-hmm. And you sure did that when you were in the Quad Cities. So could you talk a little bit about the TV and radio interviews you did?
Well, a couple of thank yous first. The first one is to Nick Probst, the same guy who's the director of music of the Big River Brass Band, because he used to be the media and promotions officer for the Quad Cities Symphony Orchestra. And so he's got all the media contacts. And as in 2019, when I was here, he did a huge amount to arrange for me to have TV appearances. And the first one was a return to the Living Local studios on Rock Island in Illinois. And they were just as welcoming as they ever had been in the past. And it was great fun to go back and be in their studios. Lively, no, it didn't go out live. Lively, but we have a recording of it, and that recording is up on my website, so everybody can see it. And it was just lovely to be able to say complimentary things about the Quad Cities and return to familiar territory again.
Absolutely. And before you talk about the rest of the interviews, there was a logistics problem with your rig, the trike and trailer, after that you rode to that interview. And then you had two more interviews coming up, and you needed to get the trike and trailer to the second TV station for the afternoon interview, but you were not available to ride it there. What sucker were you able to get to get that trailer and trike to the other station?
Some of your viewers and listeners might be familiar with a chap called Gary J. Solomon of the Laid Back Bike Report, and I thought he might have just about enough experience of recumbent trikes and trailers to take the trailer and the trike over to the second TV studio for me, whilst I went in the opposite direction under a schedule to go and be interviewed on the radio for WVIK NPR, the classical music radio station for the Quad Cities, because of course there was no visual need for me to have a recumbent tricycle, even one as beautiful as an Ice Trikes Adventure HD, on the radio. Nobody could see it. So I left it to you. I delegated that responsibility to you. What did you think of it?
It was a privilege. Of course, I ride an ice trike myself, Jon, and wow, it was fun. We left the station with the big trailer, pulling it with the trike, and honestly, that the rig you have set up there it is so nice. You really didn't even know that the trailer was behind me. So yeah, over the bridge I went on a beautiful day. It was all well and good until I left the Mississippi River on the western side, and I don't know why they have to put these TV stations at the top of a 500-foot hill, but they did. I just grannied up that hill.
They moved it the week be so that you would have a cycling and media challenge, Gary, so that you would get to the top of the hill towing the trailer.
So, right, then you finished up with the second TV station, Jon, and then in case that wasn't enough for a busy day, you then had a house concert extraordinaire at Phyllis and Jerry's house that evening, and a very special one indeed. You've done many house concerts, but there was a young lady that you have been working with, and some of your music has been about. Jon, tell us a little bit about that concert and especially about Emily.
Yeah, well, the house concert was in the basement of Phyllis and Jerry's house. I mean, American houses lend themselves to my house concerts because you can get a reasonable number of people, and I think we had something like 29 people in their basement, without people being completely cramped and falling all over each other. And house concerts are a signature of my shows. Whilst I'm in America, I've devised, since I was last here, I've devised this whole sort of house concert concept. The idea of it being that it can be performed in houses easily. And for that reason, I'm carrying around a 32-inch television and a laptop with a slideshow presentation and an autobiographical story, which can be shown with musical interludes in houses. And so it was an absolute privilege to have been invited to perform at Phyllis and Jerry's house. And to be joined by them. They're both instrumentalists, and they did a beautiful duet, flugelhorn duet version of "It's a Wonderful World." And in the audience was Emily, and we played for Emily. And Emily has an extraordinary story to tell. She's now 20, and it was just over 2 years ago that she had a brain aneurysm, which put her into a coma for a substantial period of time. She was hospitalized for 5 months. They were unsure as to whether she would survive the whole thing, and plans were being made for her funeral. But she started to make a spontaneous recovery and has undergone lots and lots of rehabilitation since. And when we heard wind of this, my good friend Willie Gilmore, composer and pianist in Scotland, and I decided that that Willie should write a piece for Emily, called For Emily, and for solo tuba and piano originally. And we had the opportunity to play that for the first time in front of Emily, having met her for the first time at that house concert. So it was really quite a moving experience, the whole thing.
Nice. It was. It was lovely. And a great crowd, as you said. All right. So the next day, we had a lot of stuff to do, but a good friend of ours actually showed up, not unexpectedly, and he happens to be with you right now. Why don't we bring in Nick White and start talking a little bit? Slide over, Nick. There we go. There's Nick. Good to see you. Nice looking chapeau. I'll have to get one of those myself. Jon, let's start with you. Tell us a little bit about Nick and what in the heck he's doing there, what he's been doing for you.
Well, Nick is just spellbindingly generous in his time and has been for about 6 months now. Nick is a highly accomplished musician. He's a retired high school band director and community band director, and he's conducted some fairly prestigious ensembles in America. He's an exceptionally good trumpet player. He's the most enthusiastic Ice Strikes recumbent aficionado that you could ever hope to meet, and he came he came upon me through social media and decided that he wanted to offer his help in the build-up to and during the tour, and in the process of that we've become extremely good friends, and Nick, with his combination of skills, has facilitated a huge amount of things which otherwise couldn't have happened because he's had the time, but he can explain more.
Well, I discovered Jon, as many people have, on Facebook, and so I explained when I arrived on Sunday in the Quad Cities that he and I have maintained a 7-month dating relationship online, but I had not yet met him until Sunday. So, there were certain uncertainties there, but everything is fine. Being in the fine arts and being used to being on stage, my role is much different, and I'm the backstage, out of sight person, and absolutely loving getting to know Jon and whatever little I can do to help him. And then since I arrived now, we have ridden together, and I'm going to be doing that for several different segments, coming up all the way up to Bemidji when he ends his tour. He is an absolute beast, riding the roads with his trailer. There's very little I have to do to help him along on the road, with exception, occasionally I've had to remind him which direction to rotate the pedals. But once we got that underway, he was down the road. So it's just seeing the Iowa countryside with him and riding the recumbents, just incredibly beautiful here. And what a privilege to work with him and know him. So truly,
likewise,
a dear friend.
Likewise, Nick.
Yeah.
Great. Thanks, Nick. We appreciate that.
My pleasure. Nice seeing you last week.
All right. Where are you going to go backstage again? Now, there he goes. He's going off stage. All right. There he goes. Lowered down below the stage. There he is. All right. So let's continue, if we can, with a really probably the highlight for me while I was there. And that was the day of the Big River Brass Band concert. It was huge. And of course, like you almost always do, the trike and trailer were involved in getting there and coming back. And so let me let you tell the story, Jon. Tell us the day and the activities of the Big River Brass Band concert.
Yeah, but before we just go into that, can we just say that immediately before that concert, Dave Hendricks of Connecticut Yankee Peddler arrived, and he knew that he'd got quite a substantial amount of work to do on the trike, because I've not been able to treat it with kid gloves, and this has been a really challenging journey for the trike. Because of the sheer loads and the miles that I've done and the torque that's gone through the chain. So we took out and replaced a lot of the transmission, new chain, new rear block, and so on. And Dave came and did that. And I said, Dave, I haven't got time to help you because I'm doing all of these other things. And he so graciously did all of that. And now the trike's running almost like new again, which is really good.
So that will bring us then to, let's start with the concert day. Yeah. And I wanted you to talk about the entourage, because it wasn't just you riding that day. And Dave was part of that as well. You can continue there with Dave and the entourage.
Absolutely. It was about 7 or 8 miles from Phyllis and Jerry's house to the concert venue at St. Paul's Lutheran Church in Davenport. And it went across the most stunning scenery, the brand new I-74 bridge in between Illinois and Iowa in the Quad Cities there, which is it's a 6-lane highway plus a lovely cycle track that runs completely separate from it. And that enabled us to get some really lovely stills and video and drone footage of that journey. And on the entourage was Dave from Connecticut Yankee Peddler on his ice trike. And then he brought another ice trike with him, which Phyllis rode on the way to the concert, and then Jerry rode on the way back from the concert. And then we had Nick with his ice adventure trike, and me on mine. So it was an entourage of 4 ice trikes going across the river to this high profile, high prestige concert. It was so unbelievably memorable. It was a real highlight of my life, not just of the tour. The whole notion of trikes turning up at a brass band concert isn't incongruous at all. So take them anywhere, and you'll and they're pretty welcome. Yeah.
All right. How about the concert itself, Jon? Can you describe your portion of the concert?
Yeah, I was one of 2 featured soloists in the concert, and I think it's fair to say that the programming was such that I had the lion's share of a solo slot with the Big River Brass Band. I think didn't do a head count, but I think there was something like 400 people there. 400 or 500 people were in the audience in this enormous, great, very well equipped St. Paul Lutheran Church.
All right, Jon, that was great. Yeah, it was fun. And then you guys afterwards, the trike entourage, I think you switched Phyllis out for Jerry on one of those trikes.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, go ahead. And then you rode home.
Yeah. And then we rode home, and we had the evening off.
So, Jon, let's talk about what's going to happen on the rest of the tour. You're going to be going on through the middle of September. So, what's on the agenda? Where are you headed now, and what do you anticipate happening until then?
Okay, on the website, www.innertuba.org.uk, you can find a detailed itinerary of pretty much exactly where InnerTuba is going to be and when. And as is the case previously, I'm mostly following the Adventure Cycling Association's route, which takes me right the way to the headwaters of the Mississippi at Lake Itasca, and then to Bemidji after that. And now we've got many more planned performances, both with community bands and in house concerts and assisted living centres, and with other groups like, for example, Loudmouth Brass. I'm playing with them on the 20th of August in the evening in Lake City. And it's really punctuated with lots and lots of things which are in the diary, if not in the diary, very close to being in the diary. And it's going to be the busiest part of the journey. So just one last thing. We've got, this is all about tubas and travelling with human power. And for the little leg of the journey in between Winona and Wabasha, my old friend Becca Coombs-Corley, who's a cyclist, she's currently riding Ragbri at the moment. She's going to come down and join me for that one-day leg, and we're going to perform together in Wabasha, probably Old Man River. And I persuaded her to borrow a trailer. She can borrow a Surly trailer to tow behind her bicycle, and she's going to tow her tuba. So there'll be 2 tubas, both being towed by human-powered vehicles, she on her bicycle, me on the trike. But we're actually trying to hatch a plan whereby we can get her a more appropriate vehicle, a better vehicle, with which to tow her trailer.
Something like, I don't know, like something like you pull your trailer with, Jon? A recumbent trike or something?
Something like an ice recumbent trike would be seemingly the way to go. When I first started InnerTuba back in 2000, I towed it behind a bicycle, and it really isn't the way to go. So we need to do what we can to get her.
Yeah, you can't go wrong.
Up to the day.
Sounds great, Jon. All right, pal. So thank you so much for bringing us up to date. As always, we wish you all the best. You do some great work, Jon. It should be more appreciated. I hope more folks will follow and see you along the way. So you take care. We'll talk again soon.
Yep. Well, I've just got to go now because my tuba is in a state of pieces, with Lee Stouffer about to get back to put it back together again in time for tonight's house concert, with all the valves and the slides all beautifully polished and cared for by a true professional. So let's let's close up now. It's a wrap.
Let's do it. Break a leg tonight. Sounds good. Talk soon.
Yeah, thank
Bye,
you
Jon.
so much. Yeah,
all right.